Divinity School, which in my opinion is why he's always able to maintain such a calm and collected demeanor. Now, I've always wondered why introductions stop just at the undergraduate level. And I wondered if it was, would it be possible to perhaps go back a little bit earlier. Kent attended the Miami Killian High School in the West Kendall area of Miami, home of the Killian Cougars. And prior to that, he attended Homer Middle School in Fairbanks, Alaska, home of the Homer Huskies. Bonnie Kilcher says hello. Now, I'm told that this was an introduction to Kent of, let's say, diversity, because I think he was the only non-native Alaskan at the time when he was living in Alaska. And I'll let you draw any conclusions you want from the fact that he comes from possibly the coldest and hottest climates in the United States. And then prior to that, the second speaker is Dan Huttenlocher. And Dan, I didn't do anywhere near as much in the research for you, sorry. He is the Jack and Rilla Nisi Professor of Computer Science, well known in the computer vision area. And he's also jointly appointed in the Johnson School. I think that's very relevant for his current activities. So Dan is Dean of Computing and Information Science, and Dan is Dean and Vice Provost of the Cornell NYC Tech Campus. And in that capacity serves as the academic lead on the Tech Campus. Dan and I linked up on a bus ride back from the January 2011 Board of Trustees meeting, literally drawing up the first plans for this campus, literally on the proverbial napkin. And somehow we've been attached ever since. I think Dan brings an incredible understanding of both the academic side and the business side, which I think is essential for leading this campus. He's done a terrific job. So with that, I would like to welcome, I think, Kent up first for comments, and then Dan will come up after.
Thank you. Lance and I are really the window dressing for the meat of the talk that will be given by Dan. But let me start with some window dressing. So Bonnie Kilcher is the aunt of Jewel. If you know who Jewel is. He said Bonnie Kilcher said hello. I grew up with Bonnie Kilcher in Homer, Alaska. It's very, very true. But that has no relevance to anything we're doing here now. So I'm going to give you a little bit of context and just remind you of what's happened in the past 18 months. But let me roll back a year before that. So on December 16th in 2010, the new deputy mayor, Bob Steele, for Mayor Bloomberg's administration, who is focused on economic development, gave his first public speech. And the focus of that speech was an announcement. And here's how the New York Times reported on that very day Bob Steele's first public speech. It said, Bob Steele, the Deputy Mayor for Economic Development, announced that the city would seek a top-caliber academic institution as a partner in building a school for applied science. Now listen to the next sentence. This is very much foreshadowing what happened, hinting that there might be more interest among institutions based in other cities or countries. Mr. Steele cited the establishment of Cornell University's medical school in Manhattan as a precedent. Great precedent. The announcement came in Mr. Steele's first public speech since he joined the Bloomberg administration. So that was December 16th, 2010. December 16th, 2011, David Skorton got a call saying that Cornell had won the competition. And President Skorton said, what did we win? We knew about the competition, but we were in doubt that we would win everything. So he asked the Deputy Steele on the phone, he said, how about the 100 million? Deputy Steele said, you got the 100 million. David Skorton said, how about the 12 acres? He said, you got the 12 acres. And President Skorton said, thank you. Indeed, that was 18 months ago, that very announcement. On that very day, actually, that was the private announcement. That was a Friday at 5 o'clock. And then on Monday, the next day, which was actually December 19th, there were two New York Times articles. The first one said that Cornell is chosen, or said to be chosen, and indeed there was a press announcement after that. And then secondly, the same day, there was another article in the New York Times, December 19, 2011, that says Cornell alumnus is behind the $350 million gift to build a science school in in New York City. And it goes on to talk about Chuck Feeney and Atlantic Philanthropies. On the very day that Mayor Bloomberg announced that Cornell, in partnership with Tech Campus, won. Philanthropy was a part of actually before that, a year before that. We used the gift from Becky and Jim Morgan to fund the proposal for that year and fund all the work and those that were engaged in that proposal and other gifts. And I wanted to tie that back to you all and just the philanthropy of how gifts, the Morgans didn't give it for that purpose, they gave it for unrestricted to the provost, but it resulted in that campus, as well as the gift from Mr. Feeney, Atlantic Philanthropies, and then also the gift that you'll hear more about from Dan, from Urban and Joan Jacobs, and other gifts as well. So it's been a spectacular 18 months, actually more than that. Just to remind you all that in this period, not only did we win the competition, but we have done a whole lot more. We have hired outstanding faculty and staff. There's now a team in this space that Google has provided for us. We're starting groundbreaking in January. The bulldozers will be on Roosevelt Island. We've received record-breaking speed in getting the program approvals from the New York State Department of Education, 5 academic programs, 5 master's degrees that we're launching. We've created a unique institute, nothing like it in the world, an international university coming to the U.S. and partnering with Cornell, the Jacobs Technion Cornell Innovation Institute. We've achieved community support. If any of you are from New York City, this is not easy, and full land use approvals in record time to build our campus on Roosevelt Island. We've raised, from as I already said, a number of people gifts, large and small, that have resulted in over $500 million in philanthropy for this campus, and it has not diminished our goals for the Ithaca campus. We've kept our original campaign goals, and we're going to exceed those for this campus. And we've hired world-class architects to design these first set of buildings on the campus. It's just been an exciting 18 months, with a lot more that you'll be hearing about as we go forward. I want to now bring up Dan Huttenlocher, who is indeed the Dean of this campus and also Vice Provost, to talk about it. Dan?
Hey, it's great to be here today. I commute back and forth between New York City and Ithaca quite a bit, and it's always nice to be back up in Ithaca after having spent a couple weeks away. So this really has been, as Kent said and Lance said, this amazing journey, and just wanted to show you a little smattering of some of the press coverage about the Cornell Tech campus in New York City. So presumably many of you have seen some press coverage, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on what you might have read in the press. My plan here is to back up a little bit and talk a little bit about some of the what and the why of what we're doing on this new campus. And I think that, you know, now really about 6 months into the academic programs, because we started our first students arriving on the campus in January, this is a very good time to look and think about what the overall campus is setting out to do. So there are really 2 key problems that we're addressing with this campus. The campus is focused on the set of technologies and disciplines that underpin this information age economy that we're all still sort of struggling to live with. You know, the pace at which new technologies are coming into our lives is just unprecedented and seems to accelerate day in and day out. I've been a computer scientist for 3 decades now, and I'm still completely floored almost every year by the new technologies that come online, generated both out of the academic world and out of the business world. But there's a really key issue at the core of this development of this information age, which is holding back both the regional economy in New New York, the national economy, and I think the global economy in many places in the world, which is that there just aren't enough people trained to work in these areas. When you look at the underpinnings of the information age, there are lots more jobs for people who have technology skills than there are people with those skills. The Bloomberg administration identified that as a key issue for the city of New York, and that was one of the reasons for putting together this call for proposals. But this is an issue nationally and globally as well. And in my 3 decades in computer science, this has been true every year that I know of except one, which was in 1990-91 timeframe. But beyond that, there's been much higher demand than supply. But increasingly, it's not just the technical skills of electrical engineers, computer scientists, and other related disciplines. It's people who understand technology use. And that's a really key aspect of what we're doing here. And in particular, as we look at building this campus, we're not just trying to address this conventional issue of producing more students and more faculty and more research in these disciplines, but tying this to the real world. And in particular to industry, but also to nonprofits and public sector as well. And I've spent most of my career going back and forth between academia and industry. And I've seen firsthand on both sides of that divide the challenges of universities and the commercial sector collaborating together effectively. We just have very different views on almost anything you can imagine except recruiting. Right? The one place where there's an amazing alignment between universities and companies is we want to place our graduates in the best possible companies, and companies want to hire graduates from schools like Cornell. But beyond that, there's really a lot of misalignment of interests and goals. And that tends to cause interactions between universities and companies to have a lot of overhead. And so one of the key things about this campus is really to bring both the leading edge academic and the commercial mindsets much more together on the same campus. And in fact, the picture here is from what we call our Open Studio Day at the end of our first semester in May of this year. And that's one of our computer science master's of engineering students presenting to a room full of about 100 people from local companies in New York City. And those of you who have degrees or know people with degrees in fields like computer science and engineering kinds of disciplines, this standing up in front of a room full of people at the end of the semester is not in the comfort zone for most master's students in these kinds of programs, especially a room full of people not coming from their sort of academic peer group. So that in addition to addressing these two problems, we think that New York City is the place to be doing this, and this is the time to be doing this because of huge changes in what's happening in the tech landscape. So for the last 25 years, we've all sort of suffered with these technology developments that were designed by people like me for people like me, instead of for people like most of you. When you look at the technology industry, it's tended to be very focused on tech for geeks. And all of the rest of us sort of live with the byproducts of that because these things also move things forward in ways that are useful to the public. And we're seeing big shifts in how technology is developed today so that early customers are really engaged in the technology development process early on. And this shift is something that we think is great for doing technology development in New York because New York has very passionate customers in almost anything you can possibly imagine. Another shift that's been happening is the whole way that technology has been developed traditionally has been that research happens in the great universities like Cornell, and then eventually kind of trickles out to the real world through students that graduate through publications and so forth. And a big change in technology disciplines is increasingly the product development and research are happening in parallel, as opposed to research happening before the product development. And to the extent that that's true, we believe that calls for a whole new approach, designing a campus where there are deep and everyday interactions between companies doing product development and academics doing research. And a key issue here is this is not just because this is valuable for commercialization, this is valuable for doing the best academic research. To the degree to which product development starts to inform research, places that are disconnected from the commercial world won't necessarily be informed about the best research to be doing. So we see this as something that's beneficial both to the research mission and to the commercialization mission. So the opportunity we have in New York is just unbelievable. Here we are in the land-grant institution of New York State, at Cornell and Ithaca, and this project in New York is really a modern-day land grant. It's a land grant from the Bloomberg administration, as Kent said, $100 million of city taxpayer funds, and about 12 acres of land on Roosevelt Island. And the campus that we're building there over the next 3 decades is focused on the computing and information sciences and engineering as they apply to this information age and information disciplines. And this is aligned with a lot of the planning that we did, in fact, when Kent first became provost, before the call for proposals came out from the city, looking at what things should Cornell be doing, not just here in Ithaca, but around the state and around the world, and expanding our footprint in New York City beyond the medical college and the sort of small outposts and programs here in Ithaca was a very important priority for the institution. So it's great to have had this opportunity aligned with something that we were interested in doing anyway. So the approach that we're taking here is to really have what I'm starting to call the 3 C's: a new culture, a new curriculum, and a new type of campus. The culture brings together real-world engagement with technical depth. And one of the key issues in most academic disciplines is when you start getting more real-world or more applied, often the academic depth gets sacrificed. And so it's a real challenge to balance both of these. Our new curriculum really differs from a conventional engineering and computer science curriculum in bringing a lot more business and design kind of thinking into the classroom. And in fact, even calling it a classroom is a misnomer. Our students spend a lot of their time interacting with practitioners, working with companies, and in some ways, the whole sort of boundary between what's education and what's experiential learning is something that we're investigating and looking at changing and building the models for. So that this traditional notion that you have book and classroom learning that you then apply, again, a sort of sequential model where the university comes first and real world comes second, just like the whole research and development process becoming in parallel our educational process is, where our students are regularly moving back and forth between classroom experiences and experiences with companies, and between laboratory and engagement experiences and classroom experiences. In addition to the new curriculum, we're building a completely different kind of campus. And as I'm recruiting new faculty, one of the aspects of this new campus is perhaps the thing that crystallizes most what we're doing that's different, which is that the first academic building that we're designing and building for Roosevelt Island and the temporary space that we're currently in Google's building in New York City, both of those have no private offices. So imagine a faculty member who can't, buy an office. This is a very different kind of environment. It's an environment that's much more like high-tech companies, where there's a much flatter organizational structure and much more engagement across the organization. So as we design our new building, as we work in the space that we're in right now, my desk sits out in the open in a room, not all that different from this, except it's not elevated up in front of the room, but a room full of desks. We have lots of private space for people to meet and engage and interact, but no private offices. And that's a very different kind of approach than we see. And in fact, when I come back to both Ithaca and visit other campuses, it feels very different and closed to me than going into these sort of always full offices. So as Kent mentioned, a key piece of what we're doing on this campus is a partnership with the Technion. The Technion is the Israeli Institute of Technology. Some people call it the MIT of Israel. Technion's played a very important role in the development of the high-tech economy in Israel. And the Jacobs Technion Cornell Innovation Institute, which was recently named by an endowment gift from John and Irwin Jacobs, is focused on interdisciplinary work that has a strong commercial potential. And that sits very much at the core of what we're doing on the campus. When we look globally, there are really only 2 countries in the world today where the tech industry is a key part of the economy in that nation, and where the universities and technology-related disciplines are absolutely first-rate at a global level, and that's the United States and Israel. And so the Technion is a very natural partnership in trying to bring together, academic leadership with leadership in technology commercialization. So for those of you who know New York, you may still not know where Roosevelt Island is. And for those of you who don't know New York, you probably really don't know where Roosevelt Island is. It's that thing that supports the Queensboro Bridge. So Roosevelt Island is about 40 blocks long. It runs from approximately the UN in the mid-40s to approximately Gracie Mansion in the mid-80s. Sits in the middle of the East River between Manhattan and Queens. It's officially part of the borough of Manhattan, although if you ask most people in Manhattan whether Roosevelt Island was part of the borough of Manhattan or not, I'm not sure what answers to get. And this image here just shows an aerial view of our site. So the Queensboro Bridge is here. And this is south of the bridge. You can see the UN over there on the left-hand side of the screen. At the very southern tip of Roosevelt Island now is the FDR Memorial that just opened, which is quite impressive, definitely worth going to see. And over time, as we demolish the old hospital that's being decommissioned here and then build up the campus, there will be a parkland south of us and then an open park-like campus setting. So almost everything south of the bridge will be this very open environment. And this just shows sort of an early rendering of what a fully built out campus with about 2 million square feet of space on it might look like. To give you a sense of 2 million square feet, these numbers make no sense to me without thinking about it. Without having examples, the campus here at Ithaca is about 16 million. So it's about 1/8 of the development of the Ithaca campus. And comparable in size to one of the big colleges like engineering in terms of the amount of facilities. So when we look at this campus, it doesn't have a traditional departmental organization. So it's not just that there aren't private offices, it's that there aren't traditional kinds of departments. At the core of the campus, there are 5 departments or disciplines that are crucial to everything on the campus. They're what I sometimes call the BITS disciplines of computer science, electrical engineering, information science, and operations research, which here span across the engineering college and computing and information science in Ithaca. And then the Johnson School and Business School. Those 5 disciplines sit at the core, but there are a whole host of disciplines that are very, very important to this notion that we're connecting technology to developments in all kinds of different areas rather than just doing technology development for its own sake. And there are 3 key areas that we've picked as focal areas for the campus overall, which we call connected media, healthier life, and the built environment. And each of those are interdisciplinary areas of study that draw not only on these core areas in the middle, but on all of these other disciplines and more disciplines besides. And the structure of the campus is such that you have dual degrees at the master's level with the Technion that are going to be developed in each of these 3 areas: built environment, healthier life, and connected media. The first of those is a connected media master's degree that will launch in the fall of 2014 and will result in students starting both at Cornell and at Technion degree. And then at the center here, these 5 disciplines in the middle, we're offering Cornell degrees, and the first of those is Masters of Engineering and Computer Science, we launched this past January. So our current plans are to have 8 master's level programs, in addition to have PhD students studying in a whole host of disciplines, at least the ones that are up here. And over time, to build this out to a campus that has on the order of 250 faculty, 2,500 students, and across this whole set of disciplines. But that's over a 3-decade time frame. So I wanted to just say one thing about, so we have 4 faculty, counting me, and counting me as a faculty member is increasingly becoming a joke, because as the dean, I spend most of my time doing administrative things and not doing research and teaching. But the thing about the initial faculty here, Deborah Esther and myself, Roger Manhart, Greg Pass, is we've all founded something, either a nonprofit organization or a company. So we're looking at a very different kind of faculty member who both excels in traditional academic kinds of ways, but also who excels in creating things in the real world. And perhaps the most interesting of these is Greg Pass, who was, until he came and joined us, the CTO at Twitter, who's a serial software entrepreneur and brings an entrepreneurial view to the campus. So as I said, there are this whole set of disciplines that we plan to launch degree programs in, and then these 3 interdisciplinary programs that will be dual degrees with the Technion. One of the things we're doing on this campus is really running it like it's a startup. So the campus itself, you know, learning by doing is not always the approach in academia. It's sort of plan, study, think, write, plan. Or someplace at the end there's a do or two there. So here, we're doing first, which is pretty non-conventional for an academic set. So we have what we call our beta semester of computer science students this term. Those students started in the middle of the year in January, which is also kind of non-conventional, but we just didn't want to wait until the fall semester to get started. And so this computer science master's in engineering is like the one in Ithaca, a 2-semester program, but the one in New York City has a required business course, a required practicum, which is workshops on Fridays where the students interact with everything from practicing attorneys to storytellers, to people from local nonprofit organizations, to venture capitalists. And then there's also a company project that the students do each semester. So the students spend about half of their time on things that are tied to real-world business, and about half of their time on things that are more conventional kinds of computer science courses that you would see here in Ithaca. And one of the challenges the first semester was making sure that the 2 halves weren't each 100% on their own. Because the temptation always when you're designing something new is to pile a lot of work in. So we did a lot of adjustment in the middle of the semester as the students were sitting there saying, stop, this is crazy. So the campus, as I said at the beginning, we're really trying to build a new culture and a new curriculum. And the culture and the curriculum both are things that focus on engaging companies, both for-profits and nonprofit organizations. And by having hired Greg Pass, the former CTO of Twitter, as one of our first faculty members, we're trying to set a very different tone as I'm recruiting and hiring the kinds of academic stars with the traditional academic credentials. Having someone like Greg there, involved on the campus already before they got there, sets a very different tone for the type of faculty member that we're looking to recruit and the type of engagement that we're looking for our faculty to have. In addition to all of the educational side of things, which I've been focusing on here, another very crucial component of the campus and development of the campus is the whole set of issues around technology transfer, and around, which is actually a phrase I can't stand, because it already implies these, the university and the companies and some, very narrow little bridge where you're transferring things across. But unfortunately, it's the term of art that's out there. But we're working on creating whole new ways of doing business development and interaction between the university and companies to get technologies developed that involve partnerships and collaborations between the research going on the campus and work going on at companies. And one of the key issues there that we view as critical is having very active engagement where people from companies spend a lot of time on campus. And so this early frequent on-campus interaction where companies spend time with our students, with our faculty is a crucial component to that, rather than sort of coming at the tail end once research is already done. So with that, I wanted to open things up for questions and have Lance and Kent come back up here and let the 3 of us answer questions you all might have at this point. I guess you're MC, right?
Yes. I've got 3 really deep questions. What do we refer to this as? Is it the Cornell Tech? Is it the JCT or JTC? The Jacobs Tech? I just don't understand what the name is.
So the name is Cornell Tech, or Cornell NYC Tech. So the formal name of the campus is Cornell NYC Tech, which has an abbreviated form of Cornell Tech. And the campus is a Cornell campus. So we're the ones who are creating and developing the campus. We're the ones who are, have the lease with the city of New York for the land and have all the contractual obligations that come along with that lease. The Technion is our academic partner for a component of what we're doing on the campus. So we have these 3 interdisciplinary dual degrees, and that's this Jacobs Technion Cornell Innovation Institute. It's a it's a key component of the campus, but the campus is Cornell Tech.
Oh, so we can rest assured that the school colors are red and white.
The school colors are definitely and the same alma mater, although we might have to, patch in. There's some interesting versions of the alma mater. little patches about references to things in New York City.
We may want to allow some other questions.
Dave Lawson, 53, engineering physics. What are you going to do with the Queensboro Bridge? I'll tell you why I asked the question. Obviously, you've got a tremendous transportation challenge to make this thing work.
Yeah, so...
how are you going to do it?
Yeah, so let me speak about that. So I actually view the transportation as a transportation opportunity instead of a transportation challenge. Which may show that, that
you're a dean.
The level I was going to say the level of delusion that it takes to be the dean in New York. So for those who don't know, the surface roads to the surface bridge to Roosevelt Island is from Queens, not from Manhattan. And there never will be a surface road from Manhattan because the navigable channel of the East River is the channel between Manhattan and Roosevelt Island. So the Army Corps would not allow anything to bridge that river that side of the river that's any lower than the Queensboro Bridge. So one of the things that's a big focus for this campus is the whole set of issues around sustainable development, which I didn't really talk about because we only had a few minutes and I figured it might come up in a Q&A. And that includes both the focus on the development of buildings and aspirations for net zero energy footprint for those academic buildings, but also includes transportation. And so from our point of view, it's actually a feature rather than a bug that the best ways to get from Manhattan to Roosevelt Island are the F train, which the 6th Avenue line, which I started to call the tech train, runs, because it's not only Roosevelt Island, it runs, over to 6th Avenue, down 6th Avenue, which means it's going through the Flatiron, adjacent to Chelsea and Union Square, where a bunch of tech companies are, and down to West 4th, and across, so now you get, all of the tech companies that are down in the village, and then out into Dumbo and downtown Brooklyn. So if you actually draw a map of where the tech companies are in New York, they're all along the F train. And so in our view, that's a very good way to get people to the campus, and the F train stops 2 blocks from our campus on Roosevelt Island. There is the tram. I view that as, great for getting to the medical college on the Upper East Side, but we won't have good car transit to the campus, and we actually do that from Manhattan. We actually do that as a plus. If you're coming in from the airport, on the other hand, it's great. You never have to actually drive. So
the bridge is a great viewing platform of the campus too.
Yeah, it is. In fact, the next time you go over the bridge, think about what it'll be like to look down at the Cornell campus.
Yeah, don't devote too much attention to that. There are a lot of cars.
Yeah, there are. If you look both from the FDR and from the FDR in the kind of 50s and from the Queensboro Bridge, they're just spectacular views of the site. It's a very, very visible place. But thanks for asking the transportation
question. Thank you. Go to the right side.
I have 2 short comments rather than questions. One is to convey congratulations on the achievement of what you have accomplished. It's somewhere between satisfaction and excitement of something that I think is going to be the seminal legacy for this decade for Cornell University. My other comment is that this marriage of entrepreneurship and technology and innovation seems so right and so appropriate. It almost seems strange that it hadn't come from the city or from academia or from corporations decades ago.
So actually, while you offer that as a comment, that comment I'll turn into a question because I think it's a really interesting thing. So when the Bloomberg administration started this, I think at some level they were taken aback at how at the degree of legs that this competition had. They saw it as a real need in New York. This is something that has sort of reverberated around the globe, not just in New York City. And I think you're right. It's sort of it's so obvious after the fact that it's an interesting question as to why there hasn't been more along these lines. And I think that it's easy to develop things incrementally that that have the same kind of outcome that this campus could potentially have, but that don't have the same kind of visibility and potential. So there are certainly universities in this country that have incrementally developed a number of the kinds of things that we're looking to do on this campus, but they're not sort of the raison d'etre for the campus. They're not the focus. So as we build this campus, everything that we're doing is about tying technology and all kinds of activities together. There are a number of universities that excel at that as a portion of what they do, but they don't have it as a definition for a whole campus. And I think that really took the clean slate sort of design. It's very hard to press the reset button on an existing organization. When you have the opportunity to build something new and do it clean slate and architect it, it comes out potentially very different. It's really exciting to be in the middle of this and have this opportunity to do something with it.
As Dan implied, there have been 3 cities in the past 12 months that are trying to follow on in the success. Washington, D.C. has announced an initiative very similar, requesting proposals from universities, London and Chicago. So it's, as Ben said, it's spreading global.
Thanks for the question.
Yeah, my name is Warren Walker. Bachelor's Mathematics 1963, Master's Information Processing 1964, PhD Operations Research 1968. All Cornell. And I'm just wondering what your ideal profile of a student is at, say, the bachelor's level going into this master's program. What are you looking for?
So that's a great question. And the honest answer is we don't completely know yet. So I can tell you what are important attributes. So to us, it's very important, given the incredible reputation that Cornell has in these high-tech related disciplines, that the students applying have strong tech skills. Right? We don't want to have this somehow not produce students with the kinds of technology skills that we're known for as an institution. But at the same time, we want students who have very good communication skills, or at least the sort of ability to learn and hone those communication skills in the course of a 1- or 2-year master's program. And that's not all, those things don't always go hand in hand, to put it mildly. The technology expertise and strength, attraction to the mathematical and technical disciplines that you yourself have in your background, and the communication skills. So we're really looking for students who can have a great impact in a high-growth environment. And that means communications skills in addition to technology skills. So one of the things we've been doing just in this computer science master's of engineering program for the admissions for this coming fall, we'll have sort of about 20 or so students in the program. We actually did video Skype interviews with every applicant that looked good on paper. And a number of those didn't get an interview. And when you look at master's programs in technical disciplines generally in the country, that's not a component of the interview process. You more tend to see that sort of thing in a business school or someplace else where different kinds of programs. So, we're definitely still working on exactly what combination of skills, but at least those.
One thing you didn't mention, though, I think is very important, are the sort of humanities and the broader skills that, mathematics at Cornell is arts and sciences. And I think that's a perfect background because you take sociology, you take psychology, you take history, etc.
Absolutely, and in fact, one of the things that we've been doing, so I should also say the applicant pool right now has a fair number of people that are not working for And a number of those applicants' undergraduate degrees are not in engineering or even in mathematics discipline. But they've taken enough relevant technical material either in their undergraduate degree or supplemented that while they were working in some extramural classes. So we have students who were, econ majors, business majors, but they can't only have that background or they won't succeed in the half of this program that's deeply technical. But they don't have to have that background as part of a formal degree. It can be courses that they
So let me add a tiny little comment to that. One of the realities that's kind of interesting is that when you look at, we have a large engineering program. Most of our students, or a disproportionately small number of our students, end up in the New York metropolitan area. I'm talking about from engineering and computing and information sciences today, because they go to the tech areas in other parts of the country. So one of the outcomes that I would love to see is our undergraduate students, which have all of the above, in my opinion, because they have the great Cornell Arts College as well as the great engineering, ending up more in New York City, and we become a feeder to the campus. So that's just kind of one of the things that we think a lot about.
You mentioned that there will be entrepreneurial and corporate involvement as a key to this. I was wondering to what extent the campus will reflect a corporate identity. Will companies have a fixed presence on campus? Will they be identified with it, or strictly as on a more consulting type of basis?
So the answer really is for both. That is, we think it's very important to have, as we grow, to have a very broad set of companies that are on campus. And so most companies aren't going to want a physical, permanent presence on the university campus. And so what we're doing is, as we develop the physical real estate on Roosevelt Island, two of the initial buildings, one is the first academic building, the other is a building that we're calling the corporate co-location building, which is space where companies can rent and actually have office space, company office space on the campus for engaging closely with what's going on the campus, both in education and research. But if we limited ourselves to the companies that want to have a physical presence on the campus, that would be a much smaller percentage of companies than we think should be engaged. So just as an example, this semester, with a handful of students in the CSMN program, we have over 50 companies doing on-campus engagement. So in classes, in projects, etc., not including recruiting. Right? So there's a lot of companies come to campus for recruiting reasons. These were 50 companies engaged in the programmatic content of campus.
For their benefit, research-wise, or for the benefit of the academic?
For mutual benefit. And I think that's the key issue is identifying the places where it's really mutual benefit. And we think there are a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry.
There's a special little club upstairs.
So a follow-up to the gentleman's question, how do I get my company involved? We're in New York City, we're looking to get involved. I don't know if you're involved, probably not, but how do you get involved?
So the answer there is keep watching. So the companies that we've engaged so far are ones that were actually involved with us in the proposal process, that have sort of been on the ground from the beginning. We're going to scale pretty quickly, and as we do, there will be a lot more opportunities for additional companies to engage. So just to give you a sense right now, so this semester with the students we have 4 student projects, and we have 30 companies proposed projects for the students to work on, which means only 12% or something of them got selected. So more companies right now would probably just be a frustration for the companies because they would, proposing a project is actual work, and then if your hit rate's some teeny percentage, people will leave in frustration. So we're deliberately right now keeping the set of companies small, and as the student body grows, which we expect to ramp up quickly, we'll broaden that and we'll have a whole process for getting companies it's
Well,
okay.
I'm too busy to keep watching, to be honest. Can I give you my email address?
Yeah,
So if you're a tech company, you should have like a tweet.
Yeah, no, just if you go to the Cornell Tech website, there's a place to indicate your interest and we'll get back to you. Correct.
So just go on the Cornell Tech.
Tech.cornell.edu.
Okay, thank you.
John Walkenberg, class of '98. So let me start by saying that I'm not an attorney. I'm a practicing scientist. I graduated with a chemistry and biology degree, so I'm not in tech, but I work for a company that does research and innovation, and we love collaborating with people who are doing great discoveries in academia, but it's really complicated and it's really slow. So, that's partly due to our lawyers, but it also has to do with, lawyers in tech transfer classes at universities. And also, it's like a moving target, right? So the patent field is changing, and there's, reform coming through Congress. So it's complicated, it's big, and for practitioners of innovation, like scientists, folks who are going to be in programs, and the companies, moving fast is everything. That's everything. And so it's a big, complicated hurdle that slows things down and is a moving target. So if you could just give more detail on the strategy there.
Yeah, so I'm going to stay high level at the moment because this is a topic that in and of itself could take hours. But we're doing a number of things to look at how intellectual property that either belongs to the university and might be used in industry, or intellectual property that's jointly generated by the university and people in the industry can be commercialized more readily. And the analogy I would use is or the example I would use is if you look at the angel investing world today versus the angel investing world 15 years ago. 15 years ago, an angel investment of a couple $100,000 literally took tens of thousands of dollars of legal work. Today, an angel investment of a couple $100,000 takes essentially $0 of legal work because all the large angel networks use standard agreements. They're publicly available on the web. If you're going to get money from them, that's the agreement you're going to use. And the key issue is one of having the overhead of the transaction be appropriate for the transaction scale. An angel investment is small. You don't need a lot of legal overhead. It should be pretty standardized. Same thing is true with most interactions between a university and a company. The scale of that interaction has a low dollar value. And so when a person wants a legal time involved in a low dollar value transaction, it doesn't happen. But our belief is that if the angel community can make this work and has a lot of the same dynamics going on, and different stakeholders with different interests, and we believe that this can be changed in the university world also, and it's something that we're actively taking on. Our success there will only really be a success if it's a success for everybody. It's going to be very hard to do something that's, Cornell only. We need companies, we need other universities. We're taking a leadership role there, and we plan to take a bigger leadership role there. But this is really an ecosystem issue and not just an issue of any one institution. But it's very much at the top of the list.
And my prediction is that the changes that Dan and his team are implementing in this broad area are going to have not just an impact across Cornell, but nationally. The Department of Commerce called up President Skorton and Dan and asked if they could have an office on the campus to be a part of this change in terms of how companies, both mature and startup, will engage with universities. And the major form of, again, I don't like the word tech transfer either, but tech transfer will be, I think, through the students, through these 2,500 students that are graduating almost every year coming out of this program.
Well, and as David Skorton likes to say about the Commerce Department, he said that, it's not every day, before the Tech Campus, it wasn't every day that cabinet secretaries were calling me up. So say no, don't do it, don't do it.
Too late.
Question here, right?
Hi, my name is Brad Burshad. I graduated in 2006. I'm currently on a leave of absence from a master's program in computer science. I founded my own company last summer, and I'd be interested in transferring. I was wondering if you could talk about the timeline of when you're going to be moving from the Google offices to the campus, specific Cornell campus, and when you're going to go from the beta program you showed the slide for to other types of programs, or what the timeline for.
Sure. So this fall, we're already starting a small but regular computer science master's program. There will be around 10 or so students in it. We plan to grow that as we get the applicants that we think will fit the program. So that's really going to mainly be constrained by the applicant pool of for that particular program and by space until it grows a while. In the fall of 2014, we'll launch the Connected Media Dual Degree, the first of the interdisciplinary programs with the Tech Campus. We will also launch at least one other master's program in the fall of 2014. Not completely clear yet what discipline that will be in, but ones that are pretty far along in the planning pipeline include a version of the MBA, the Johnson School, and an information science master's degree. In terms of moving, the physical plant on Roosevelt Island will open in 2017. So we will be in Google's building in Chelsea until the summer of 2017. We will get more space in that building over time, but we will be tight there, until we move. But it's a spectacular. So Google's giving us this space rent-free over those 5 years. It's about a $12 million donation. It's really quite a vote of confidence on the part of New York City.
And are you accepting transfer students?
We have to sort of look. I can tell you who to get in touch with, and we can have a discussion with our admissions folks.
Thank you very much.
We're going to do one more. Yeah.
I'm a guest and a long-time admirer of Cornell, and I just wanted to refer back to your notion that there's this creative friction between the academy and the commercial world. But then you added another creative fiction that I just wanted to ask you about, and that's the creative fiction that comes when you're engaged with organizations from the not-for-profit sector, civil society, the commercial sector, and the governmental sector. And all three of those sectors have very, very different core values. And yet this sort of apparatus suggests that the dominant value is interdisciplinary efforts moving toward commercialization. So how do you see that creative friction, and will it all end up with the commercialization of these other two sectors, or will there be some kind of dynamic understanding of the power of information and technology in all three in this synergistic kind of hopefully creative?
So the reason that we focused more on the commercial outcomes is because they generally have proven the most effective ways to get new technologies to large numbers of people. But the inclusion of the broader set of nonprofits is very deliberate and very much a piece of our mission. But realistically, if, and I feel like I'm a fund manager or something, the past is not being predictor of future performance or whatever. But if you do look at the past, so much of the success has been on the commercial side that we believe that that warrants a bigger presence there. But I mean, in some sense, when I'm only half joking about the scale of the task that we're taking on here, academic world, the nonprofit world, the commercial world, all have very, very different cultures. And our goal is to bring all three of those together. It is true that the commercial culture is a bigger portion of what we're doing than the nonprofit one because of our belief about what the outcomes will be, but not the only one. So for example, one of our first hires, Deborah Estrin, is very engaged in nonprofit activities in the mobile health arena.
And I did notice there were three areas clearly suggest other values in communication.
But when Dan and his company talk about the goals of the campus, it's not about making money, it's about societal good. and the impact that technology can have.
Yeah, although it takes money to have most impact.
As we all know.
So this is a fantastic conversation, but I'm mindful of the time. We've run out of time for this session, but I invite those that have questions that they can come forward. So let us thank both Dan